for me, I'm not the same person I am in English like I am in. I'm not saying that I'm two different people. I'm saying that for me, Spanish is just fluent. Like if I want to fight, girl, I want to fight in Spanish.
Or if you want to
because
love.
my arguments, or if I want to love in Spanish. But like, it's something that I have been dealing with because I was like, if I'm dating with someone that doesn't speak my language, it's hard sometimes, like expressing myself. Like sometimes I just want to cry and say things in Spanish, but
they're not gonna understand.
They're not gonna get it. And it's hard.
Bienvenidos a su podcast favorito, Lecciones de la Vida, where we take a deep dive into the heart and soul of the Latino experiences through sharing our stories, of our struggles, our triumphs, and anything else that resonates with our community. And again, my name is Bridget Hurtado. I'm your host for today, and by my side, I have our amazing co-host and mental health professional, Elisa Fonseca. And I'm excited.
Thank you,
Elisa.
Bridget. I'm excited to be here with you again, another episode. We have two guests today, two amazing guests as well. We have Delia today, and we also have Cristian. Welcome, guys. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Hi.
Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi everyone, my name is Delia Luna. I am 24 years old. I was born in Mexico, but I have lived here practically in California all my life.
Thank you.
My name is Cristian. I'm 30 years old. Born in SoCal. Moved around a lot, but still here. Even though we're wishing to get out of here, but we're here.
We love the weather, the California weather,
definitely
right?
The weather's pretty
The
chill.
lifestyle.
Bueno, today we have a super exciting topic. We're going to talk about anything love, relationships. We have our chisme bowl again, so we're going to spark up some questions on that and give everyone an opportunity to share about love, life, relationships, not just romantic relationships, right? But with family and the dynamic being Latinos and from different backgrounds and how that plays a part in who we are now. So, comenzamos. Are we ready?
Let's start. Okay, who wants to start? Delia.
Okay. Let's see.
I feel like we need to do like a drum roll.
Do you want me to read out the question?
Yes.
Have you
please.
ever experienced a funny or awkward moment when bringing a new partner to a family gathering for the first time? For me, just in general, I think because my family is very traditional, I don't like to bring anybody around my family. Just because my relationship with my parents or just my family in general is very complicated. So I think no, like I haven't really brought anybody around, but when I do, it's definitely very like intense.
Like awkward intense?
Yes,
or?
like awkward intense. Like mi familia les gusta notar todo. So
En otras
it's kind
palabras,
Pickies? They're like kind of pickies?
o
Or like...
criticones.
yes, criticones.
Oh, okay.
So, en veces es como estás estresada porque no sabes qué van a pensar o qué te van a decir o cómo los van a tratar.
Sí.
Si van a
no
hacer
quieres que-
caras o
Yes.
no.
Si
Sí.
no van a tener como reacciones chistosas y van a espantar a quien traiga. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, funny story, true story. For my 26th birthday, I made my own birthday. I paid for everything, and I created a... So my birthday is in October, so Halloween theme is a big thing for me. And I invited my coworkers, I invited my partner then to my house. We made in a little porch, I decorated and everything. And it was going to be the first time that I was going to introduce someone to my mom. And I had my mom have no interest. I had my mom say, ¿Y pa' qué la quiero conocer? It's like, okay.
And you would think like it would take the pressure away, right? Like if you're in a costume, or does it add more pressure si estás en un costume?
Yeah, like we were all wearing costumes. It's like, it's just a fun party. You don't even have to say anything. And I thought, yeah, pretty memorable, growing up and thinking, well, up to that point, I'm thinking, do I introduce them? Like, what type of dynamic? I didn't grow up with parents that were very involved with like relationships. I grew up with my mom just telling me, go to school, education, that's it. No talk about sex, no talk about relationships. It was just a focus on school. So it was all trying to figure out how to like what do I do? I don't have someone telling me like, oh, you can go this and that. I don't have that type of experience of how to approach this subject. So all I have is the internet, and it's just like taking a step forward and trying to introduce someone to your family. And when it doesn't happen right, it's like, okay, now where do I go from here? All right, fine, I won't introduce them anymore. I won't introduce anyone anymore.
Y se me hace interesante, right, from a male to female perspective, right, and how that is a different dynamic. ¿Qué te pasó a ti, Elisa, or do you want to speak on that?
I feel like something interesting that I'm noticing. If for me, if my mom and my dad don't like the person that I'm dating, it's what am I gonna do? Like I need my mom and my dad to accept. So sometimes I feel like that pressure when we are introducing someone is like, what happened if they don't like it? Because we're gonna like it, like we're gonna still like the person, but if they don't like it, the relationship is gonna be way more complicated.
Then it has to be.
For me, like my parents, they were always really open. Like my dad was never like, you can have boyfriends or whatever. No, they're not like that. They were really like okay with it, especially with me. I'm the youngest. With my sister was a whole different story. But funny story could be like my mom. I have like a similar type that I like. And I have a couple of boyfriends that they look alike. So my mom used to tell my boyfriends the name of my exes once I introduced them. So they were always like mad at me or with my mom, but they were like, funny things, small things. What about you?
Girl, it sounds como que that is funny. I think that's the funniest one. Pero I think similar to like Delia and Christian, I was very cognizant of it. A qué tiempo I would introduce like a partner to my parents, and I think my parents have only met like 2 of my partners or exes or whatever, just because I'm very particular. Porque what are they gonna say? ¿Qué van a decir? Or are they gonna accept it? Pero una vez sí le dije a mis padres, or I told my mom, I was like, él es para mí, no para ti.
Right.
Entonces, tú ya viviste tu vida, deja que yo viva la mía y que yo viva mis experiencias. Y siempre dicen, like, ay, pero mija, I don't want you to go through what I went through.
Yeah.
Pero that, I think your story won the funny one.
And at some point, you have to, like, experience yourself, like, just... Because in Latin communities also, like, if their mom or your dad doesn't approve it, it's because something, they can say, but maybe not. But maybe, like, maybe they don't like it, but he could be or she could be a good girl or a good guy. So
A la siguiente,
let's continue. Shake it. Okay, Christian, your turn.
All right, drum roll.
Thank
you. There you go.
Do you think Latinos love differently? How do you feel about the stereotype that Latinos love is dramatically passionate and intense?
Is that why you use that voice? You haven't used all the question?
Just reading it.
The Latino fire. ¿Sí lo
We're
tenemos,
passionate,
el sazón?
yes.
Oh yeah, I love your
Sí.
typical Latino love, woman in the kitchen.
I'll be like,
This is a whole other conversation,
I was like,
Christian.
oh, we're about to start fight.
wait, it said
Fuera.
something about the stereotypes, right?
I was just
I thought the question said something about
No.
okay.
Well, Latinos definitely do love differently. But I think in our case, we're here in America, so you can't really say Latinos in general. From my perspective, we're very Americanized, so we take our influence from TV shows. We take influences from our parents. Like for me, for example, my parents weren't... I don't have a single memory of when my parents got along with each other. Like, it's such a long time. My parents separated when I was in middle school, and although they were technically separated, they still lived together. So they were trying to like create this dynamic of like, oh, you still have both parents. But it's like, I see them and I definitely don't want anything to do with anything like that, bringing it into my life. So that's a different situation for me. And being here in the United States, we watch TV, we see other people go through relationships, and we're trying to pick and choose what is it that works or what is it that doesn't work. And from me, I look at my family, I'm like, I don't want that. I definitely don't want that. So I'm trying to figure out what type of person am I trying to become, and what type of person am I trying to like get away from. So I suppose it differs from person to person.
Y me gustó lo que dijiste, that we're very Americanized, porque I would go to Mexico often, and a mi prima le trajeron serenata. So serenata is, you know, when you're out in your balcony and they bring you like music.
I want
like
serenata.
men don't do that here. Like even Latino men. Like, so seeing that, I was like, you know, he went and brought her flowers, and I've never seen that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want that, you know. Or they romanticize it in the novelas and the soap opera. So I love that you brought that up. But
Oh, you mean love bombing?
Huh?
Love bombing.
I think it's different because like I came here like 3 years ago, so I can kind of compare because the country that I was living, I grew up, I raised there, so I can see a huge difference between America, and I can see a huge difference between my country. I'm definitely a passionate, like I can't hold it, like I just love and I feel like I can be too much sometimes. Like I express my love like hugging, kissing, like if I feel like the necessity, like I'll be always touching you, kissing, and I can see the difference here. Like people is not that way here. Like even in relationships, like guys are not like that, and it could be a little bit overwhelming, you know.
And what's the difference between love bombing and being affectionate? And what is the difference between Latinos being affectionate to other,
or like your cultural norms?
Right?
And you could be, I could be expecting that. Like I will love roses, I will love like serenatas, you know, because I came from this. Maybe not serenatas, but like I come from roses or like gifts or like let's go to dinner, let's go this. And people here is like, oh, let's just go on a date. And
Let's say you
just,
would grow up here.
like, exactly.
You would think
I will think
differently.
like you guys,
You would
probably.
think, wait, hold on. Is he trying to buy my love?
Yeah.
Or like it's like, oh, well, you're not putting in effort. But when does that, like, how do you define effort?
What's
if
the
that's
line
what
for
you're
you
used
girls
to?
between, oh, this is romantic, and I think he's love bombing me?
That's a good question.
I think for me, because if you think it like that, if you love the person, like if you're in love, you're gonna love everything that they do. I don't know if that happens for you girls, but like if I'm not that into that person, I'm gonna be like, oh, this is too much, or this is not what I want. But if like you actually, for me, it's like if I actually like the person and I feel love him, everything is gonna be like, oh, he's so cute, the flowers, the gifts, the things. But that's for me. I don't know, you guys.
I'm gonna bring some psychology in here because I think there are different love languages, right?
I was gonna say
True.
that.
So I love that book. I read it, and you know, I don't know if y'all have heard this, but the way we give love is what we didn't get growing up.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know
whatever.
It's different than like you, like the love that you give and the love that you receive.
It's different.
Could be different.
Yeah.
So
So maybe
my-
you don't find. I'm sorry. Maybe you don't feel like you're being loved, but maybe they love you in a different way.
Yes.
But it's hard that as well.
Yeah, because I think the love languages have a lot to do with it, because my love language is words of affirmation, and I think quality time is like the near last one, and gift giving is the last one. So I don't need to spend every single day with you. I can see you once a week and I'm cool with it, you know? So my love language would be, you know, just words of affirmation, but I don't have to see you every day, but you know, it's different for everybody. So love is complicated. How do you define love? How do you know that someone loves you?
Bridget.
Definitely has an aspect of how you grow up and what you had around you. For myself, with my mom, put an example for my mom. She was very much of a person that did favors for you. She was taking care of me, or to her ability being a mom. So I ended up being that person where I look after a person and I feel like I take care of them, and that's how I feel like I am contributing to a relationship because of that same aspect. My dad, he wasn't that much around. Well, he was around, but he worked a lot, so I couldn't really grasp a lot of concept from him. But what I did grab from him was his sense of humor and his playfulness. So I saw how playful he was, and I bring that into a relationship of playfulness, trying to make that significant other comfortable around all situations, and just being attentive to all their needs and wants. So definitely growing up, and that's something that I've very much learned very recently. A lot of it has to do with how you grew up. A lot. Almost
I have
everything.
a question for you, all of you. Okay, so now that he said that, my question is, does it ever become overwhelming because you grew up like that? So like, let's say, for example, right? Like you come from a very avoiding attachment, like family. So like you didn't grow up seeing that kind of love. So when you do receive it and it's like, oh my gosh, like all these flowers and like so much consistency and they want to see you every day and all that, like does it become overwhelming? Does it become like scary?
Yes.
Like it's like, why are you doing that?
I think
and
it
then,
depends, because also you could be lacking of that so much that it could also feel good, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the person as well.
yeah,
I think it's a normal reaction to be skeptical.
right?
Or maybe don't think this is true. Or
Yeah,
maybe,
or
like,
maybe you don't believe
are
it. And
you
then you're like, oh my
real?
god, is this
or you
person
do
like
this for everybody?
genuine or is this
Uh-huh.
person love bombing me?
Right. Yeah.
Or like, what do you want at the end?
Because
This
I think
other person is also thinking, this is what a woman wants, you know, according to the norms.
Right.
So they're also trying to do their
Right.
part, and I suppose unless it feels so unnatural to this other person and they don't like it, it's gonna end pretty soon, and then you'll see what type of person they are.
Yeah.
But I would say it's pretty normal to be skeptical with everything. You know, you're getting to know this complete stranger.
I think it's also important for me to ask your partner what are your love languages, because sometimes like the way that I love is not the way that we usually receive love, even in parents, sisters, siblings, friendships. So it's good to know what my friend need, my couple need. There's like something that says, I think it's in the book, that says that we have like a jar of love. It's in the book, right?
Okay.
So when we start like putting like love of affirmations, our jars start like getting full of love, right? And full of love. But once we don't have those things that makes me feel love, my jar is gonna be empty.
Right.
So if the person that I'm dating with, they don't know what kind of love fills my jar is always gonna be empty. So I think for us as a person, as an individual, knowing what's my love languages is gonna be easier for the other person to communicate that.
And I'll add to that because Delia brought up our attachment styles too. If you have anxious attachment or avoidant attachment, that's a whole different episode that we can talk about because I think they go hand in hand. Pero, ay, ya se puso bien caliente. All right, are you ready for the next question?
Okay.
You want to go?
Okay, I can go. Let's see.
But I love it. I definitely agree with everything that we've been talking about.
Oh my god, guys. Let's see. What is the sweetest thing someone has done for you? Or what have you done for someone else?
It could be anyone.
Yeah, maybe it could be anyone, or you want it to be just like a boyfriend and girlfriend?
No, anyone.
Anyone?
I think, yeah.
I'm not gonna start, guys. I need to think.
She's like, I got everything.
Like, let me tell you. The sweetest thing.
No, you can start.
Yeah? Yo me paso. Like when I love hard. But I think, like you said, love is so complicated because at a point it could be a trauma response, right?
Yes.
So I stayed in a very toxic relationship for about 8 years. And it was because I was feeling a void that I never had and I had for the first time. So I kept going back. One, because I felt like I could change the person, trauma response. And two, they did a lot of acts of service that, you know, oh, this person is buying me purses and, you know, taking me out to eat. Like, I grew up really poor, working class. Like, I never went to eat at Olive Garden weekly, you know? So this person was in my life and exposing me to different things. So it was like,
Exciting.
Yeah, right. So what I did when I started working and getting money, we traveled to Cancun together and I booked us, it was his birthday, and I booked us in front of the ocean romantic dinner with the petals and the surf and turf and the candlelight, and I got the room decorated with like rose petals and everything. Yes.
That's so cute.
But we got in a fight that same night, so it didn't work out. But I think that's just the sweetest thing I've ever done. And my partner now, I love him. I think I've worked through a lot in therapy to get where I am now. But part of me kind of put a wall up. So part of me wants to just not do as many sweet things as I used to do because I got hurt too. So yeah, I think that's the sweetest. I think I've done more sweet things, but I think for me that was just like the most meaningful thing I've ever done because it was expensive. But I'll pass the mic on.
So because it was expensive. Gotcha.
It was really. I was a broke college student.
How was the food?
So it was great. It was a vibe. But I think I've done other cute things, like other romantic things. But I think if I have to like say one that topped the charts, like it has to be that one, you know. I love my partner now. Like, he's an amazing
good, yeah.
partner. That's a whole other story. We lived together. That was a transition within itself, pero yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna
I want to bridge
expose
it in my
myself.
life.
Pero ya, ¿quién más va? ¿Cristian?
Yeah.
Ooh, I have several for both ends, for the done for me and for done for her. In the past, I really appreciated when someone gets really into your TV shows, or, for example, Marvel. You know, this other person wasn't very invested in that, and my partner binge watched a whole show for me, Breaking Bad, just so she could have a conversation with me. So I thought that was really sweet. Birthdays, you know, had a special cake. My 26th birthday, her mom had made me a fruit basket or a fruit, and it had the 26 on it. I really love that. I remember I learned Korean for her enough to sing her happy birthday.
Wow.
We went on vacation. Instead of ending the vacation, I booked another place to go. It was another national park, stayed another place. A couple, but definitely I really like when someone invests in something that I like, just to be able to have a conversation with me. I think for myself, being able to have a conversation with a topic, or for example, when it comes to politics, I like discussing what's going all around the world and with anything. And if someone can engage with that, even just a little bit, I start talking about it. Like if someone just engages with just one of the topics and we can riff off of there, I love a good conversation. So it doesn't take a lot for me, just as long as we can go nonstop talking.
That quality time.
Yeah.
The quality time, the connection. For you, Delia?
For me, it's a little off topic, but well, it's in topic, but not about like relationships. So growing up, my parents were very traditional, very like hard. They were very strict. So I had a counselor, and I will always remember her because during that time, I was undocumented, so I didn't have DACA. I didn't have anything. So I was a sophomore or like a freshman in high school, and I couldn't go to college. So to me, it was over after high school, right? So it was like a process that I struggled with because I wanted to be like everybody else. Like everybody was like, oh, I'm going to go here. I'm going to have a career like this. And for me, it was just over, right? So I had a lot of AP classes. And at the time, we had to pay for like the testing and stuff. And I remember I would go cry inside my counselor's office, and I was like, oh, like, I can't do this. Like, it's too expensive. Because I would see how hard my parents would work. So I was like, I don't want to ask them, like, for money, you know, because it was just, so I'm the oldest of 3. So I was like, okay, like, I have to pay for these exams and then all of this. So one day, I wasn't going to take them. And I was like, no, I'm not going to take them. And she wanted me to take them. And she was like, come on, like, you have to do it. Like, you have to try. Like, you have all A's. Like, you could do it. And I was like, no, like, I don't want to ask. And there was no way. So it was like, I don't know, like $300 maybe. So one day I came to school, and she, like, pulled me into her office. It was the day that we were testing, right? And she was like, oh, like, you have to be here. Like, you have to be in this classroom. Like, you have to go with the rest of the kids. And I was like, why? Like, I'm not going to test, right? And she was like, oh, don't worry about it. So I come later to find out that she paid out of her pocket everything so that I could take those tests.
That's
And eventually I got DACA, and those credits that I attained from like the AP classes, they went into my classes, so I didn't have to take them. They were credits. But yeah, till this day, like, that was like, I think the purest and most genuine thing that anybody, because who would pay for that? Like someone that isn't yours, like a stranger. Yeah, so I will always remember that. That was like the sweetest thing, I think.
That's
Somebody that believes in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the most genuine thing. I mean, I could think like of other things, but that's like the core memory.
That's something that made like a change on you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That it
As a
impacted
person.
you.
oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Oh, for me, let's see. I think one of the sweetest thing could be maybe could be like my sweetest kiss could be with my recent boyfriend that I have. We were dating for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
Initially, like, I'm really passionate, so I'm like, okay, like, kiss me, you know? Hug me. And he was not like that. So he was really like, he was not cold, but he was like respect like a lot in the time. And I'm like, dude, we have been in like a lot of dates already. Like, where's my kiss?
So your love language is physical touch.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then the 4th of July, he planned like a date where like he was gonna kiss me as the fireworks were on the sky. So he planned everything. He was like, I couldn't kiss you before because I needed to be on the 4th of July. So the fireworks were gonna be there.
Aww.
So this is, it's maybe like one of those things that you're like, aw, he actually thought about it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That could be.
Yeah, voy a ayudar.
Okay, Delia, your turn again.
Okay.
Bridget, have you gone?
No, Delia, I'll go
What
after.
happened? Oh, you have one? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh.
We're not taking turns.
Oh, okay,
It's
okay.
Whoever's called it. Go
Okay.
for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
Let me see.
We'll go with you next. I'm sorry.
Okay. How do relationships between generations, grandparents, parents, and children function in your life? Are there any unique aspects to how these relationships interact with each other?
That's an interesting.
You know what? That's so interesting because I was just having a conversation about this, right? How in past generations you think that you're like, oh, the divorce rates were lower, you know, so much chivalry. But I feel like there has been such a progression in that, right? I was talking to my friend that maybe the divorce rates were lower before because of that machismo that maybe played a part too, or women didn't work, so they couldn't afford to like take care of themselves. Yeah. Like us women, we work, men work, y somos más independientes, right? But yeah, what do you all think?
Bring back machismo.
Si sigues.
We're gonna end up fighting.
So
It's gonna be over.
It is
camera,
3 against
you and
1,
I.
so you're gonna lose.
3 gets it.
This is another episode on machismo and masculinity.
Yeah, we should do that.
Bridget and I are cousins, so we have a pretty big family. We have a big family, and so not everybody's here in the United States. Not everybody came over. So we kind of have a lot of people to like learn from and not learn from. Well, in the sense it's learning what not to do.
Unlearning, maybe, like.
Unlearning.
Yeah, I like that.
Learning to get out of that because we don't actively know that we're still doing it or we're carrying what we're learning from our parents. As I mentioned before, my parents were separated, and so I see what I don't like and what I want and what I don't want. But there's still aspects of your parents that still stay with you, and unless you're actively working on them, you will still have them and bring them in a relationship. I think sometimes we don't work on it. I think we do tend to, speaking for myself, I suppose that I don't prioritize. I notice the things that I carry from my mom, her mannerisms. She acts differently in front of you growing up. You know, we've had that where like I go to your house and then your mom is treating me like a king, and then she comes to my house and my mom is a different person. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So there is some envy going on. But when it came to our parents, we're always looking to see what kind of person are we gonna become, and what am I still carrying from my mom. I noticed that I used to carry, until even just a year ago, I was carrying the way my mom would talk and how she would like talk down, or she would make me feel bad. So I ended up carrying a little bit of that over to my relationship, and I would catch myself, but because there's so many other things going on in my life, I don't prioritize that and work on it. It's like I would catch myself at that moment and think, oh, what am I doing? I'm like, okay, sorry. Yeah. But up to there, and then unless I'm actively working on it to get rid of that that thing that I'm still carrying, and I know that it's wrong to do, it's gonna stay there. Yeah. And eventually ended up blowing up in my face.
And just to give y'all some background, my abuelita, were our mom's mom, she had 22 kids. So 22. It's a big family. So growing up, I knew that I didn't want to be like my grandparents. I didn't want to be like my parents just because I think Latinas, they embed us in like, you have to have kids. And I remember when I went into college, my parents were not supportive at all. My dad was like, you need to have kids. Why are you going to college? Like, pretty much like I didn't know where to go because my mom was just not supportive. My dad's like, don't go to college. Like, you're not going to make it, you know? And I was like, I don't want to have all these kids.
Yeah, definitely the kid aspect is very pushed on you.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to have kids.
Wow.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't know if I grew up with my grandparents seeing their affect to each other. I know my grandpa passed away before I was like 5, I think. We were really young. So I don't know the dynamic, but what I hear from our stories is that my grandpa was just like work, and my grandma was left alone to like take care of all these kids. And it was like 4 sets of twins. So I don't know if I can speak for wanting to. I know we're doing we're breaking generational like love and relationships, but I didn't really have a relationship to look up to, except for I think my sister and brother-in-law. They've been through it, and you know, but I don't know. I just see that older people. It's kind of like what I see in movies, right? Like that they open the door, that they're like, "Oh, dinner's ready," you know, love. But I don't know. What do you all think?
I agree. I feel like for me, I met my grandparents when I was 4. I don't remember them. They're still alive. I've all 4, you know, but I don't see them. I am the oldest, and my dad is a baby, and my mom is the oldest. So just seeing, like, I think the different dynamics of like my parents and like my dad's family. There's only 2 boys and 4 girls, so all of them are married, you know. And my mom, it's kind of, she's the only one that's like actually married. So just being able to see that, their relationships and like how rocky they're, just like my mom doesn't get along with my dad's parents and vice versa. So they don't have a good relationship. And I think growing up, kind of like how you said, how I feel like just in my family, I've seen that they stayed whether or not they get treated right. Because it's like, oh, well, like I depend on him, so I can't leave. Right? So growing up, well, at least my parents were always like, you can't have a boyfriend, or you can't do this, or you have to go to school. It's like, you have to go to school, you have to work. And now it's like, oh, when are you gonna have kids?
Right?
Like, and I'm like, well, the fact that they were very strict, as in like I couldn't go anywhere, because safety was always an issue. But now I'm like 24, and they're like, oh, where's your boyfriend? Like, and I'm like, yeah, where are your kids? When are you getting married? And it's like, I thought you wanted me to go to school, but I thought you wanted me to work. So it's just like the dynamics of like how their relationship was, like them fighting all the time, or not being able to like separate just because she depends on him, kind of thing. So just being able to see that, I think for me, it was more like, I want to be independent. Like, I want to be able to be the kind of person that if I'm not having like it, I can just leave, you know, and be like, okay, well, you don't serve me any purpose. Like,
you'll be fine.
I'll be fine, you know? Like, yeah, so I think that also has to do with kind of like what you said. No ha tenido a alguien que pueda ver, you know? The type of love that's like, they show in movies. But like just seeing it off of my friends or like my friends' parents, or just like that, I'm able to be like, oh yeah, like it does exist. It just never, like, you don't know better. And I think that also comes back into like the sense of like relationships, like our trauma, just like the things that we put up with because we think we're supposed to be treated that way, but it's not supposed to be that way. It's just that's the way that we saw, and we don't know any better.
I want to put a little twist to the question. What is one positive thing? What is one good thing that we took out of the relationship that we saw our parents kind of have, if any? And something that stuck with us that we're like, I love that my dad or mom do that for each other, or because I believe that when people initially meet, like there's some kind of love or spark or infatuation before the divorce and the fighting and everything happens. So did we ever experience anything that we can recall and say like, you know what, like I like that they do that for each other.
The yelling, the toxicity, definitely. No, none of the yelling. So I didn't have that. I'm still trying to, even though I already said I don't have a memory of my parents not really, like, well, getting along. My mom would be the one pushing my dad away all the time. So I suppose just individually, my dad's playfulness and my mom's ability to bring in like urgency to some certain manners, like not being so lazy on certain aspects of life, like being very attentive to, like, we need to look after our health. For example, in our family, there was a lot of aspect of health. So health, when it comes to your partner, you really look out for their health. So that's and then for my dad, the playfulness, making sure that my partner is always smiling.
What about y'all?
I'm thinking.
Our special guest.
It's on your shoulder.
No fly was hurt.
Yes, no fly was hurt in the process. I think for me is that they've always made sure that we were okay at the end of the day. You know, like whether they were good, whether they were bad. I think at the end of the day, like we were okay. Like we were healthy, you know, like we ate. They made sure that we were their priority, like regardless of how their relationship was. So I think that's why we are okay, or we've gotten where we are, is because our parents have always pushed so that we were in a better place than they were. So I think with, like, regardless of how the relationship is, they are people, you know. They are learning. I grew up with them as well. Like they're still learning just like we are. Yeah. So at the end of the day, like, I'm very grateful for everything that they have given me, or like everything that they've taught me.
I love that we're actually we grew together with our parents. Like they're also human beings trying to figure life out, you know. And I feel like we can be super judgy. I can be super judging how this happened, why this, that, you know, like the machismo, the things, that, why my mom did this. But at the end of the day, they were just trying to.
Or maybe that's what they learned.
Exactly, that's what they learned, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think us as that first generation or second generation, we're breaking those barriers and that generational trauma, right? Like we saw what we could take and what we cannot take from it, you know, and they were doing what they could with what they had, you know. So I think that's chains. You know. So now if we do decide to have kids, you know, we're gonna teach them differently than how our parents did. So we're all resilient.
I like that you bring that up, how we're actively thinking, oh, if we were to have a child, I'm gonna be a better father.
Because we always say, like, yo nunca quiero ser como mi mamá o mi papá. But it's like, como dijo Christian, like, dang, like, I have some of my mom's mannerisms. But,
Okay, do we have more questions?
Sí.
I think it's your turn, right?
A ver.
I took your turn before.
I think we talked about this one a little bit, right? It talks about, you know, if we look up to our parents. Entonces voy a agarrar otra.
Okay.
I feel like we talked on that one. Esta sí me gusta. Okay. It says, has growing up in a Latino household influenced how to date or what to look for in a partner? And I think the first thing that comes to mind is dating outside of our culture, right? Yeah. Is that acceptable? Is that even an idea that's entertained? Te dije que era una buena pregunta.
Yeah, it's good. Well, for me, my boyfriend is Filipino. So, and it's the first boyfriend that I have, like, outside of my culture. Yeah. So I think, like, my family was always open about it. You know, like, they don't care much. They just care that you are happy and that they're treating you the way that they should. My mom and my dad, they don't care, like, if any culture. It's interesting, though. Things are different. Especially, like, for me, like, in another country, everything is new. The food he introduced me a lot of different food, a lot of different things, a lot of different places here. I think the culture is really similar, though. Filipino and Latin people is really similar. Really? Yeah, we have, like, similar religion. I don't think we ever fight because of culture things. But I know that it also depends on what kind of cultures are they. Because I guess, like, if I'll be dating with maybe a guy from, I don't know, maybe Italy, or maybe, I don't know, Middle East, or maybe, I don't know, different cultures, maybe it's gonna be different. So the closest culture is gonna be easier, maybe? I don't know.
For me, I feel like I haven't had a specific person, like a specific type. So it's been all over the place. And when it comes to like my family, I don't know how they feel about it because I've never brought them
Okay.
but it's very interesting to see that like we are more open-minded about who we date, you know, because we live in California. Like we meet people who come from like the other side of the world, you know? So we're very like open in a sense, or at least growing up here, we are taught to be very open. So I think it's very different than the perspective that they grew up with, because it was like, oh, like we're in Mexico, like we're gonna date, you know, someone that is from here, or because that's what they're used to, and we get to travel, like we get to explore, so we're open to a lot more broader things. So I think it's very interesting.
I think right now for Latinos, you can see the shift right now with a lot of white girls, with a lot of paisanos, and so there's definitely a shift here in Southern California, actually all of California. We've been going allá para San Francisco, allá se ve, allá. But yeah, California, New York, it's the biggest melting pot that could be, even though United States is considered melting pot, pero acá al sur, definitely. For me, for my previous partner, it was great to have Spanish. It feels great to just speak that tongue. I love talking Spanish. Me encanta.
That's something
Me
else.
encanta.
Sí. Y eso iba.
Se siente uno bien a gusto.
Sí. Y me gusta que dijiste eso porque my boyfriend, he's half Puerto Rican and half Russian, pero he's very he assimilated and acculturated to the American culture. He's like 5th generation, so no sabe nada de español, Puerto Rico, nada de eso. Entonces, cada vez que viene to my house, like my parents roast him and press him, like, ay, enséñale español, enséñale español.
Yeah,
So part of me, it's like, I don't know. I'm very conflicted because it's like we're instilling and like are putting our biases in, but at the same time, one, learning the Spanish language in California is great because in your job you can make more money if you know 2 languages. But 2, I want to make him feel not ashamed.
Right.
But also, like, I love la lengua de español. Es más romántica, or no sé, pero it's been difficult porque siempre, every time we go over, like, my parents always like, ay, ¿sabes español? Enséñale español. Da, 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 da. So it's been a thing since.
Are you comfortable with, because como sabiendo aquí mexicanos, we like to poke fun of people. And so my question to you is, are you comfortable with like the poking fun of it? You're okay as long as he's okay? Or would you be okay if they toned it down? How would you feel about like the making fun of?
You know what? I had a conversation with him about that. I was like, if my parents are doing too much, like, let me know. And he's like, no, I really want to learn the language. Pero that question didn't even come up, or that conversation, until like recently. And we've been together for almost 2 years. So we just assume, right? We assume like, oh, it's fun. We're poking fun. Y así somos los Latinos, bien juguetones, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
But yeah, it can, especially for those that have been acculturated and assimilated. It's a whole different conversation because I don't know about y'all, but you know, I'm an ESL kid. English was my second language. And it was hammered down like, you have to speak English. You have to speak English. Like, don't speak Spanish. So going back to my family, my dad's like, ay, habla español. Aquí en la casa se habla español. Sí. So it's very conflicting, right? Because we come to this country and it's like, you speak English, but then now you're getting hammered down because you don't speak Spanish, you know? So this is a whole other episode.
Is it harder, like for you, like to, I don't know, how do I even say this? Because for me, I came here and I was 4, right? So my first language was Spanish. I was also an ESL kid. So I think growing up, I had to be so focused in like learning English because I was so behind everybody else. So now, because I've been in school for so long, my Spanish is okay, but I feel like me confundo bastante en lo que estoy diciendo, o explicarlo es más difícil para mí. So now that I'm like, my parents will ask me to translate something, and I'll be looking at the paper like, how do I say this? And I'll try to tell them in English, and I'll try to
It's hard.
guess it, and it's like I have to go back and forth, but it's not because like I'm just doing it because I don't want to speak Spanish, but it's because I really don't remember like what some of the words are. And also here we have different dialects of Spanish,
Right.
so that doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, and they have those labels of like the no sabo kid, right?
Yes.
Now, so I'm just like, oh my
I
god.
Did you
think
guys
it's-
get the ¿Pa qué vas a la escuela, pues?
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
I think it's hard. Like
Yeah.
for me, I'm not the same person I am in English. Like I am in. I'm not saying that I'm two different people. I'm saying that for me, Spanish is just fluent. Like if I want to fight, girl, I want to fight in Spanish.
or if you want to
Because my
love,
arguments, or if I want to love in Spanish. But like, it's something that I have been dealing with because I was like, if I'm dating with someone that doesn't speak my language,
A little harder.
it's hard sometimes, like expressing myself. Like sometimes
Yeah.
I just want to cry and say things in Spanish, but
Yeah,
it's-
they're not gonna understand.
they're not gonna get it. And it's
Yeah.
hard. So usually with my dad at home, I'm like, Dad, can you please speak with me in English because I want him to understand. But my dad is speaking in English with me. That's like, no, that's not gonna happen. Like I grew up like that. So it's interesting. So yeah.
No tenemos tiempo de acabar el chisme, but it's chisme del bueno.
But what's so funny though?
I know, ya se nos acabó el tiempo. This can go on and on and on. Maybe we need a part two. Because there's so many other questions we can talk about. But before we go, really quickly, what's some advice that you can give to anyone that's out there dating? Or, you know what, better yet, que le dijeran a the younger version of
Oh my
yourself?
God, Bridget.
Regarding like love and dating
Why?
and relationships. If you had somebody tell you something that you needed to hear, what would it be? Bien rapidito, así, porque ya se nos acabó el tiempo.
Check yourself before you... No, I'm just kidding. I'll still keep the check yourself, but check how you're doing with your childhood trauma,
I love that.
because
Oh my God,
you can
yes.
still bring it into your
Yeah.
your everyday life, not just your relationship, your friendships, your other family member, extended family members, just anything. You bring that in, and if you're not actively thinking about it, if you're avoiding it, you're gonna run into some trouble.
I love that one.
Yeah, I agree. I think just being self-aware and aware of your surroundings and not being scared. I feel like you can try and explore like any kind of relationship, whether it's like a friendship, like an actual relationship or anything, just like not being afraid because of your past trauma.
I mean, I don't want to bring it down, but you know,
Pretty much.
Yeah,
besides
that's
that,
more of the story.
trae amor,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
just bring
yeah.
love, you know.
Yeah.
Bridget, for you?
Ay, el amor es bonito.
Yes.
Love, you know, and we might not have had the best experiences with our grandparents and, you know, our parents, pero I think love is, you can't put a price on love, you know, and it's tan bonito cuando sientes el amor que you don't know how to describe it, ¿verdad? So I think love deeply, and even if it hurts, you know, but at least you felt it, because a lot of people are not lucky to feel love.
Yeah.
So give it, feel it, yeah.
I think really quick what I will tell my youngest self will be love yourself first and know that you're worth, and that understand that not everybody's gonna appreciate that, but like the right person is going to do it. So that's it, guys. Thank you for being here. Oh, I love this episode.
Bueno, ya se nos acabó el tiempo, but thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Lecciones de la Vida. And if you have any topics you'd like to hear, drop it in the comments below. Y nos vemos hasta luego.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.